stream in which I'm going to give you a lesson on writing a world-class comic strip in real time. So I'm going to do something that I don't know has ever been done. And I'm probably going to quickly find out why it's never been done. Maybe it's a bad idea. So the idea is that I'm going to be taking some suggestions, both from the comments here, and also I've got open chat on the locals platform, where subscribers to my community are making suggestions about what kind of comic topic I should write about. So what's going to happen is this live stream will be kind of long and slow in the sense that you're going to watch in real time the process from beginning to end of coming up with a comic idea and running it through the filter or the formulas, if you will, that the cartoonists sort of have in their head, and how to then translate that into an actual joke. I'm not going to do the drawing today. Drawing would be separate lessons. This will just be how to write a tight little comic strip. I wasn't planning on doing a simultaneous sip, but as it turns out, one of the things I wanted to talk about is environment. So the first part of this lesson is how to get your environment right. In my case, if I don't have a warm beverage, I'm thinking about it the whole time. So a lot of what you're doing as a cartoonist or writer is creating a situation where you're removing all the other things you would be thinking about. And let's take the simultaneous sip, and then I'll tell you about those. You ready? Do you have your cup or mug or vessel? Go. Oh, that's good. So, first thing the writer needs to do is find the physical situation that is most conducive to writing. Now, if you don't think that's important, you'll never be a professional writer, because getting the physicality of writing just right is the difference between being able to do it well and not. It's that big a difference. In my case, I'll tell you my routine, but it would be individual to each person. I'm literally in my pajamas with a little jacket on here, because temperature and physical comfort are really, really important. Nothing is more comfortable than pajamas. And first thing in the morning is when I'm most mentally capable of writing humor. So I've tried to do it at any other time of the day. It's always better in the morning. Don't know why. It doesn't have to be a reason. It's just the right energy for me. Most writers have the same experience, by the way, that early morning, or for some of them late at night, which kind of becomes early morning, is when they write best. So that's the same with me. Another tip is I can't write with my shoes on. Don't know why. I'm not saying that that would apply to you, but try it. If my shoes are on, I just don't write as well. So I always write barefoot, but again, that's individual. And I also make sure that my feet are flat on something and my legs are not crossed. That's my dog making. I'm live streaming Snickers. She just doesn't understand. And I contend that if you get your physical condition right, and you're not like laying back on a bed or relaxing on a couch, because those things trigger you physically into a relaxed state. That's not the state you want to be in when you're trying to reach your peak thinking capability. You want to be in a physical position which is compatible with peak mental capability. And that's easy. Sitting upright with good posture, feet squarely on something, whether it's a footstool or the ground, and looking straight ahead. Because if somebody said, all right, your life depends on you solving this puzzle, your life depends on it, and you're getting ready to hear the puzzle, what position would you be in, right? If your life depended on it, would you be, all right, I like to relax when I hear my life and death puzzles. All right, go. Probably not, right? You would sit upright with your feet square on the ground. You would have good posture, and you would say, What? And you would be really clear that your body language and your mental state had to be aligned. It would be life and death, and you do it right. If you're writing and you're not operating as close as possible to your peak mental performance, it really shows. The difference between being completely on your game and being just a little bit off when you're writing is the difference between being commercial and not commercial. It's a big difference. All right. So I put on the jacket really just to show you that you have to get your temperature right. It physically is soft. All of my clothing is soft. So I've got all of my physical stuff done. I've made sure that if I needed to use the restroom, I've done it. If I have any hunger, I snack first. But you do something with protein. Eat some peanuts or a protein bar, but don't eat some carbs, especially simple carbs, because those simple carbs will turn into sugar pretty quickly, and they will bring down your energy. And your brain will get more relaxed, which is good in its own way, but you won't be able to write as well. So the food you put in you right around the time you write, how much sleep you got, even the amount of light. Let me show you my room is right now. The curtains are down, and I'm using artificial light indirectly. Now, part of this is for the benefit of the cameras, so I can control the light. But I also control the light to control my mental state. Now, I told you I write best early in the morning. I write best before the light comes up. And there's something about the light that makes me not want to be sitting at a computer. If I see natural light through a window, I want to go outside. It's just a natural impulse. So sometimes, and this works well for me, I have blackout shades so that if I really, really need to force myself to do some creative work, I can make sort of an artificial morning that lasts a little bit longer, which is what I'm doing right now. All right, so here's the process. I'm going to be taking suggestions for a workplace or even remote work themed comic. I'm going to be reading them from the Locals platform, from my subscribers there. And then I'll tell you how to run them through the humor formula. Now, the humor formula, we'll go over this first, is something I invented years ago when I discovered that there was a pattern to what made things funny. As I was a new cartoonist, I was trying to figure out, now, why is something funny and something isn't? Have you ever wondered that? Why are some things funny? And most people will say, well, it's surprise. Not really, right? I mean, surprise can be part of what makes something work, but it's not like the key to what makes something funny. The key, as far as I can tell, is to use at least 2 of these 6 dimensions of humor. Now, I came up with these 6 dimensions just by observation and pattern recognition some years ago. But you'll find that this formula holds every single time. And you will, as soon as you hear this for the first time, your first reaction will be, okay, I can see what you're saying, but that's not going to be true every time somebody writes humor, that it's not funny unless they have 2 of these 6 elements. That can't be true every time, but it is. Every time. No exceptions. You will see people attempt to write humor with 1 dimension, and it might even get published, but you're not going to laugh if it only has 1. All right, let me say a little bit about what the dimensions are. And by the way, the more dimensions you have, the funnier it's going to be. And that rule is pretty much guaranteed. So cute usually means children and animals. So that's why comic strips have lots of little kids and lots of cute animals, kittens and cats and tigers especially. Clever just means that there was some kind of a solution that is sort of laughably clever, as in it's almost crazy enough to work, it's so bizarre, how did somebody think of that solution? Or it looks like a solution, but it isn't quite, but it's clever. So it's a clever solution. You'll know these when you see them. Naughty, of course, is any sex or bathroom reference. Those are obvious. Bizarre is any two things that don't belong together. Gary Larson famously would have talking animals. Now, because animals don't talk, that's bizarre. So putting a bizarre element in a comic gives you one dimension. Now, he also had to have at least one more dimension, and always did, usually two or three. Recognizable means that the situation in the joke is one that you've been in. And you say to yourself, oh yeah, I've been there. I'm going to have to yell at my dog every now and then. Now she's going into this loud snoring routine. So the Dilbert comic is built on this factor, the recognizable part. So I usually start with something that you would have experienced yourself, usually at work. Cruel is anything bad happening to anybody, especially if it's done intentionally by somebody else. So watch me go through the formula. I'm going to take now some suggestions from, so Andrew says, I love your naivety. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I've got a feeling that you're not liked at parties. All right, so here are some suggestions coming in on locals.com, my subscription platform. Do something on the guy getting ready to retire. So people who are ready to retire are funny because if they act selfishly, there's a lot to work with there. So I'll just give you some suggestions, and then when one pops out, I'll tell you which one we're going to turn into a comic. Now, the thing that you're looking for now is if the fodder itself, just the setup, makes you laugh. This is a really, really key point. If you're trying to write a comic about some real situation, well, it doesn't even have to be real, but if there's a situation that you're considering for a comic, it's not going to be, you won't be able to turn it into a joke unless it makes you laugh before the joke is there. Very important. If the situation doesn't make you laugh, the joke or the punchline won't. So you got to start with it being funny. And watch how that plays out as I read through some of these ideas. Here's another suggestion. The work annual party to be held online. Bring your own booze. Attendance is mandatory. Now that does make me laugh. That people would take this in-person tradition of getting together to have some partying with the staff and turn it into an online thing that people would absolutely hate. So if there's anybody who likes getting together and drinking with their coworkers, which is a thing, people do like that often, even those people are not going to like the absurdity of having a drink with your computer screen and wishing you were doing anything else but that. All right, so as soon as you hear that idea, I haven't added any joke to it, right? But didn't you kind of get a little reflex that was, oh, that's absurd? So absurdity is what we're looking for, not hypocrisy. Hypocrisy, people who are new to try to write humor will write jokes that are, aha, and the hypocrisy. I said I wasn't going to do this, but then I did that. That's the level of humor you'll see on a bad sitcom or somebody who's new to it. So look for absurdity that you can draw out that's already funny just by its absurdity. Don't look for somebody who says one thing and does the other. That's just too easy. All right. Somebody said, I've spent more time on Robinhood. That's the app for trading. I've spent more time on Robinhood during the meetings than I care to admit. My camera, on this, a second idea suggestion is, my camera is broken, so no video calls. Have any of you yet experienced the person who is probably lying to you, saying that their camera doesn't work so they can't do a video call? Have you had that yet? Because that's a thing, right? It's a whole new thing to lie about. All right. Let's take this one and turn it into our example, all right? So the suggestion is somebody lying about their video camera being available. And let's say that's the starting point that I want to build a comic on. So that's the fodder. The first step I do is figure out which characters are in the story. So which of the Dilbert characters would be kind of weaselly and either be the person who is claiming that their camera is broken, so that would be Wally, for example, but Wally wouldn't really care if you saw him or not, so it's not a perfect fit. Who else in the Dilbert universe would lie? Would first of all lie. So the boss would, but he wouldn't be the kind of person who would lie about his camera being broken. So who would do that? Well, in the Dilbert universe, there's no perfect person who fits that. Dogbert would lie, but all the people who are liars in the Dilbert universe also wouldn't care if the video was on. So it's not a perfect fit. So here's how I would solve this. So I would solve it by having one of my main characters talking to somebody who's not a regular character. So it's just somebody lying. So I'm going to say that the person who's doing the lying is not a regular character, but the person who's responding to it is. Now, who is the person in the Dilbert universe, the cast of characters, who you would want to put in an awkward social situation? Who would be the fish out of water character who, when there's sort of a new social situation, if you're good at those things, you can navigate it. But if you're not good at social navigation, anything new is a little, puts you off your game. Yeah, Dilbert, the title character. So imagine Dilbert being presented with somebody saying by text, oh, I can't do a video call because my camera's broken. And Dilbert's an engineer. What would he say? Right? So you're already laughing because all I did was put the fish out of water. So as long as you have a situation that is not a good fit, usually something funny is happening. So here the lack of fit is that Dilbert doesn't know how to navigate social lies. Somebody with a better social instinct, when they hear my camera is broken, they don't believe it. They just figure the person that doesn't want to be on camera for whatever reason. But Dilbert would not assume it's a social lie because he doesn't have that instinct. So he would either try to offer to fix it, or he would, he would claim it was a lie. For example, if you said to me, my camera is broken, here's the first thing I would think. How often does a camera get broken? Now, how many of you have an iPad or a device, or let's say a laptop or something, in which the camera has ever worked, but now it doesn't? Does that come up a lot? I don't know if I've ever seen it. Now, certainly if you drop your camera, I suppose you could break it if it's a separate camera or something. But Dilbert would automatically assume it was a lie because the statistical likelihood would be so low that the camera was broken. And then he might also be an engineer about it and try to suggest how to fix it, which would be exactly the wrong response because it was just a social lie. And then the person would have to extend the lie. Now, the next decision I'd have to make is whether this is a topic for a Sunday comic, which has, in my case, 8 panels. So I can tell more of a story with a story arc. It could have, beginning, middle, and end. Whereas if it's just a 3-panel daily strip, I've got to hit the setup and the joke right away because I've just got 3 panels. So which do you think that would fit better into? As I was talking through it, I could see that the interplay between Dilbert and somebody who was lying to him, but he wasn't picking up that it was a social lie, would be funny. So I would probably default to making a Sunday comic because it's him questioning the person and then the person having to get further into the lie and Dilbert not realizing it while the audience does. So that would be the example. Now, let's see how that would fit with the 6 dimensions of humor. So what I'd be going for is recognizable, which is if you haven't had somebody yet tell you that their camera doesn't work, you probably will, and you know it. But it also is recognizable enough from related social situations where somebody says, I'm late because traffic didn't work, or I would have returned your call, but my phone battery died, right? So you recognize it even if it hasn't happened to you. It's like just so universal. You know somebody's going to lie about that. So you got one right away. Now, what would be the other thing to put into it? I've got no cute characters, so I don't have anything to work with. There's no animal here, and there's no kid. I haven't thought yet of a clever solution, and I'm not sure it needs one, but it might include Dilbert giving some ideas about using another device or something, but that's not that clever. So probably nothing to work with there. There's nothing automatically naughty about it, so if you can avoid the naughty one, do it. You'll have far more audience. Sorry about that dog snoring there. Far more audience if you leave out any kind of naughty stuff. So I like to do naughty stuff because I like it and there's an audience for it and it does make me laugh. But it's not good if you want to be a commercial artist in any kind of a mainstream setting like a newspaper. If you want to be the edgy, naughty person from the first moment, in other words, that's your brand, well, then go for it. But that's your brand, and that makes sense. Bizarre. Bizarre is things that don't fit together. You know, it would be like a talking animal. And this is close to bizarre if you have the situation of Dilbert talking to somebody on video, or well, texting him, I guess they would be. And he would not understand that it's an obvious social lie that somebody says their camera is broken. That's why they can't do a video call. So you'd have that. But probably the one that is best to work with is cruel. So what I would want is for something bad to happen to somebody. And for many of us, the reason that this triggers a laugh is that we recognize in ourselves that little bit of evil that we try to hide from the public. One of the reasons that The Far Side was such a successful cartoon is that bad things would be happening to people. And you would laugh. And you would think to yourself, okay, I'm laughing at something really bad happening to somebody. Am I a bad person? Maybe I am. And you would have this whole conversation with yourself about whether you're a bad person for laughing at something bad happening to somebody in a comic. So The Far Side used this kind of comic level, low-level cruelty to great effect. So I would probably try to, since I only have one strong dimension, which is you might recognize the situation, I've got to force one of these others into it through the writing. And the ones that work the best would be, it's a little bit bizarre because Dilbert is not getting the social part, so he's a fish on a water. But I'm going to try to see if I can steer it towards something cruel. So in other words, either something bad happens to Dilbert or something bad happens to the person who's telling the lie. Now, which would be funnier? Would it be funnier if the liar has something bad happen to them or Dilbert has something bad happen to him? What do you think? Which would be funnier? I feel like it might work either way. So I'd probably default to whichever way just the joke works better. All right? So I would probably want I'm seeing in the comments, people want to see the liar get their comeuppance. Yeah, I think my instinct is going the same way. So because the liar is a liar, and Dilbert is the star of the show, and he's a sympathetic character. So Dilbert is created to be somebody that you don't dislike. You appreciate his naivete, and you appreciate that he's sort of a trusting person, even though it doesn't work for him. So you would want the liar to be the one that got penalized. That would feel a little better, right? All right, so now we've got the rest of the formula. So we got the situation. A person lies about their camera not working. You've got the decision about who the characters are. So since none of my characters have quite that personality, it's just going to be some stranger on the video or potential video. And then Dilbert is the character who would most be at odds with that situation. So he's a fish out of the water, but he's also the star of the comic, and he gets the most attention when he's in there. So he's the obvious choice as the other person. And now we've got the natural tension of the fish out of water and the person telling a lie, but the fish out of water doesn't know it's a lie, so he's trying to solve it. And then what does the fish out of water do? Thank you. And so we want some cruelty here. So what would look like cruelty? Now, probably one way I would go is that so as frustrated as Dilbert might be, because he sees this problem that's either a lie or it seems easy to solve because he's an engineer, the other person might be just as mad at Dilbert for pressing this thing when it should be obvious it's just a social lie. So I think we'll have Dilbert, drilling on him until he snaps. And in the Dilbert comic, it's always funny to me when somebody snaps, because that also is bizarre. So when any of the Dilbert characters get too exasperated, their hair stands up and their jaws separate and they shout and they sweat profusely and they shake and stuff. So that alone gives you a little visual thing. But you want somebody to be so exasperated that is cruel. And so the way this would go, so now we've developed kind of the full story arc, that there's the liar who says my camera doesn't work, there's Dilbert who keeps pressing it about how to fix it or how likely that is to actually be true, and then you have the guy getting really exasperated because Dilbert doesn't get it, that it's supposed to be a lie. He flips out, and that's the cruel part. But the exact choice of words is what will make this work or not work. Now, let me tell you about choice of words. The good key advice for choice of words is if you're trying to be funny, you want short, crisp, direct sentences, very similar to the way that you would do business writing. A direct, crisp sentence. Because you don't want people to get lost in the words. You've got an idea, you're sending them, and you're controlling the timing of your joke by how long the sentence is. If your sentence is too long, they've forgotten what the setup was. If it's too short, it'll just look stubby, just feel too short. There's always some ideal length for any sentence in a joke setup, right? And you have to pay attention to that. So those are the basics. And you want to pick words that are less commonly used. I like to call them Scrabble words. Words that might have a K sound or a Q sound because they're funnier. I do this test with audiences. If you don't believe that some words are funnier than others, let me give you a choice of two words and tell me here in the comments which one is funnier. And they're just two ordinary words that mean roughly the same thing. But one of them is funnier. The two words are either pull or yank. They roughly mean the same thing, right? Yank, you get a sense of more action, I guess. But 100% of people who hear that, look at the comments, 100% of humans will say yank. There's almost nothing that you will get that much 100% agreement on from human beings. Human beings just don't agree this much. But I could ask the same question to 1,000 audiences of 1,000 apiece, and every person in every audience who is native English speaker would say yank. And maybe every non-native speaker would say it, because it's the sound of the word itself. So when you're writing, you might write your first draft with pull. And then you look at your sentence and you say, that's just kind of dead. It just sort of lays there. So you think, all right, which words can I substitute with just little punchier words? And you say, oh, that word pull, I'm going to change that to yank. And you don't want to change all of the words in a sentence to the clever version. Just say one word from pull to yank will turn a sentence from just laying there into a perfectly good setup for a laugh. And you can do that with the other sentences as well. You just go back and re-edit your writing and say, all right, that was the boring way to say that word. What's the interesting way? The way that immediately gets your attention. The way that makes you think of that person or that character or that stereotype or that annoying person. And then here's maybe the final layer, if you will, for writing. Now this applies a little bit more to long form, if you're writing an article or a book. But writing has a rhythm that is like percussion. And if you get the percussion of the sentence right, it's much more pleasing, and the reader will enjoy it without knowing why. They will just know that they enjoyed the experience. They'll just think you did everything right. They won't know that one of the things you did right was the percussion of the sentence, meaning that the letters that have the sharp sounds, or whatever sound, like the K sound, the T sound, a D, if you have them placed just right, your writing actually has almost a beat. And if you don't, it could flow, or it could be too staccatic. Staccatic, is that a word? Staccatic? Where it would be too much. So by the time you get to that level in your writing where you're worried about the beat, you've probably done everything else right, we hope. Staccato, thank you, that's the word. Staccato. And not the word that sounds a little bit like it. Somebody says the word is Jen Psaki. All right, so if you joined me from the beginning, you saw the entire process, the thought process that nobody ever shows you. I would do the boring part, which is to try to create the actual sentences, but that really is a whole bunch of writing and rewriting, etc. I think it's good enough that you saw the whole process. And that might be the first time, maybe ever, that a professional writer wrote something in front of you, because it's really hard to write when people are watching. One of the advantages I have is that comic strips are not much writing. Now somebody's saying it's staccatic. All right, well, whatever that word is, you know what I'm talking about. In fact, to give you an idea of that writing technique, when I do the simultaneous sip in my morning show, and when I say the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, those are sentences that are designed for the beat. The unparalleled pleasure and dopamine hit of the day. You hear the beat? Unparalleled pleasure, dopamine hit of the day. That is intentional. All right, I'm going to end here, and I will talk to you tomorrow.